likely and plausible. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm making any of it up at all. It makes total sense to me. All right, so with that, I'm going to get the formal YouTube intro started. And shout out to Nick, obviously. All right. Hey, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for coming through. We're about to have an interview, an exclusive conversation with the one and only the wonderful Alexis Marshall of Daughters fame, but he also has a solo record coming out very soon this month. We're going to talk about that and more and anything else that comes up in this conversation. We're starting a little bit late today due to some technical difficulties, but we're here now. It's looking good. And chat's popping off. Fuck. Okay, Swan Diverly, fuck you for taking me off of my train of thought there. Someone in chat just likened you, I think, to Bigby of Train Spotting fame. Is that a film that you're into?
He was the obnoxious one, yeah.
He was the loudest and most Irish of the bunch, and
right. He did the full Monty. That guy.
Yeah. He was an intense guy. He was the fighter. I liked him. He was one of my favorites.
He was a great character.
He was a great character, and it's like, you say what you say about his personality, but I mean, he didn't befall the same pitfalls that everybody else in the film did. So he has
was
that
the only one not shooting dope, I think, right?
I think so, if I remember the film correctly. So he has that going for him. But his addiction was fighting. He liked a good fight.
But he was a drinker too.
Yeah, he did.
I haven't seen the movie in like 20 years, so I don't.
It's been a while, but the baby scene sticks with you.
I see it sometimes when I'm alone in my bed. The lighting comes into the room in a particular way, and I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter how many years it's been since you've seen the film. That baby scene really just kind of sticks in your head forever.
Honestly, that scene sticks with me. And then there's a scene from the original Pet Sematary where the spirit gets out of the bed and then runs at the camera. Mm-hmm. It still freaks me out even now. I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but I think about that scene and it makes me very uncomfortable.
That scene's fucked up. And honestly, Pet Sematary in the grander scheme of the Ramones catalog, kind of an underrated song too.
Great
in
song.
My opinion. Of their campier 80s output, it's a really great track.
Those are good albums, man. There's good stuff there.
Yeah. Cool. And speaking of just weird scenes from movies and bad 80s stuff, I also think of, what is it, The Thing? The scene where the guy's head plops off and then grows spider legs, and then it's an amazing moment in the film where they put into dialogue exactly whatever the audience is going to think in reaction to that, and then immediately after that transformation happens, one of the characters just says, "What the fuck?" and then it just sort of goes from there, which I think was a really self-referential, really meta moment for film during that time. It was almost.
I watched it a couple weeks ago. It's on the Criterion channel right now.
Okay, it's a great movie. It's a great fucking movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so this new record that you have coming out, House of Low, House of When, which is going to be coming out in a few weeks. I've been listening to a bit of it. But obviously, everybody in the audience is not, acclimated to the record yet. What are we going to be in for on this album? If you can kind of just tell people listening and watching generally, just so we have a bit of an idea as to what we're getting into when we first put it on.
I have to make a self-assessment. It's
sure.
Talking to a music reviewer, and I have to tell everyone.
Don't think of that element of it. Don't think of that element of it.
I think a lot of people are expecting a Daughters record or something that's the next step or sure. Something. So that's really irritating. That being the band being a collective and this being something that's removed from that, and it's one person from the band. So I guess it's a weird record. I'm pleased with it. It's a little weird to sit on a record for a year, and then to release it now it's a little bit frustrating. I can see some things I wish I had done differently, but it's not, I'm not a big fan of like melody. I don't care about that. I'm not interested in a verse, chorus, verse, intro, outro type of thing. That wasn't what I was trying to do with this record. So, I'm a big, like, Public Image Limited fan. I think that if you're a bigger fan of the Sex Pistols than you are of Pill, you're probably not going to like this record.
I think that's an interesting analogy and argument to make. I mean, for one, there is, like, I think, a really significant shift in, as you were kind of saying, like the structure of the tracks on this record. It sounds like, especially on the writing side, you were shooting for something a lot more linear. And as far as like the poetry and the words you've worked into it, it seems like a lot more stream of consciousness, or just like off the cuff, or just like, moving in a singular direction and not circling back to a verse or a chorus or anything like that. For the most part, there are mantras and there are refrains that you almost like call back to and sort of like really hammer on for the listener, but it's not trying to be super hooky from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, call it an anaphora. Yeah, they're like appearing throughout. There's a lot of repetition on the record, and that was something I was like doing with a lot of in my personal writing. So I mean, throughout my writing career musically, I'm very self-referential. I think if you kind of look at the Daughters catalog, there are a lot of recurring themes and language and words that I use a lot, which isn't, which is by design. It's not unintentional. So, this record also kind of, I think I tried to take that a step further and then be like very repetitive and not, as I said, not create a verse and a chorus and all that, but to sort of kind of create a like Pill did with Flowers of Romance, which is sort of like very rhythm driven, like drums and vocals, and then everything else kind of is happening around it. And really wanted to do that. As a person, I don't play guitar, so I don't sing, with a melody. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. I kind of focus on, when it comes to Daughters, it's sort of, as long as I can hear John, I'm good. So I took that into this recording and the writing of the record, which we did all in the studio. Threw away all the demos and we just started fresh in there, and then everyone kind of just worked together. I wanted to just sort of create set the groundwork and then add things here and there and see what we could do, but really just create a sort of a room and then like exist in that room for 5 to 7 minutes, however long the songs are, and as opposed to this is here and then this is, and things go up and then down. It's just sort of like I just created the space and then it minor changes.
Well, I mean, I guess like with there being not as much pressure to be working on, things like a traditional or, a very, chorus-based song structure and not focus so much on melody, or have that be kind of a key component to your writing on this new record. What did that allow you to, like really kind of dive deep on? What did stripping those things out give you space to like really explore that you might not have been able to on a Daughters record to the degree that you are on this new LP?
I mean, lyrically, it allowed me to just do whatever I wanted. Where often with Daughters, I'll find a chorus, and I'll have to kind of put that together, and then sometimes that'll be the first thing I do, and then I have to get there, or the ending will get stuck in my head and I'll write something. I'll write the end of a song. Ocean Song was like that, where I had come up with the last couple lines before I had anything else in the song. And then I had to figure out how to get there. This was like, I got to start from like, the first word. And I went through to the end of the songs, which is not how I ever work. It's more how I write when I'm writing, like my poetry and shit like that. It's more of, start at the beginning and get to the end. And so I think like it allowed me, and I ignored a narrative. I tend to kind of work on a narrative and tell a story. And I didn't have to do any of that or think about that. And, and it, as far as lyrical content, I think it allowed me that the freedom to just say anything I wanted to say and not have to worry about like circling back to something and referencing some point, and like how is because sometimes you have a chorus and then you lead into the chorus, you get to the next verse, you kind of have to tie it into the chorus again, and not, because that can just seem a bit awkward and staggered. So I didn't have to think about that at all. I just really wrote whatever the fuck I wanted to write, and it worked.
Even if it wasn't maybe the most top priority in your mind, in writing this new record, still, would you be able to go into what exactly was the process on this record when it came to just like crafting the sound palettes and drums and noises that are just like kind of, screaming and banging away in the background as you're kind of creating this poetic mayhem on top of it?
Yeah. So I don't play guitar. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, guitarists. So yeah. They're so
just terrible people.
They're kind of cringe.
So for me, it was really building from the ground up and putting down the drums and things like that first. So everything for me was focused on rhythm, and I had like a bag of coins. Touring Europe, you end up coming home with like a shitload of, because wherever you go, it's like they use they're using coins for everything. It's quite obnoxious, and they'll come home with a lot of shit. So I had a large bag of coins, and I thought, well, there's got to be something I can do with these, and brought them into the studio. We made something with a sheet of metal and a bag of coins. The three of us spinning coins and trying to do things with that. I don't play guitar. I hate trips to Guitar Center. Was always like my least favorite part of tour, where someone would need to get something. We'd have to stop at a Guitar Center. It was the most unpleasant experience I possibly have on tour. And I've had a lot of unpleasant experiences. It would have to be my least favorite. But I enjoy hardware stores. So I kind of turned like Home Depot and like Lowe's and shit into my kind of Guitar Center, and went and like was getting hammers and sheets of metal and a lot of stuff and like chains and thinking about like what can I do rhythmically with this stuff that's going to we'll be able to create some depth, as opposed to just like I'm singing strictly to the drums and then like we don't like what the fuck are we going to do next. So and I had some recordings of like a clogged air vent that we were playing a show in Vancouver, and I became fascinated with the sound, and it's like an air vent that was clogged, and I climbed up like in the green room, like through some hatch and then onto the top of the green and like recorded this thing and used that. A lot of just found items, I suppose, and it was a lot of shit like that, and it was more fun, and for me, it made me feel like a lot more connected. When there's the band, it's like we've got the drummer, he's going to play the drums, and this person's going to play guitar, and this person will play bass, and everyone has their role, and this was more like I got a paintbrush that had hard, and someone had lacquered in the basement of Machines and Magnets. They have a whole work area, and someone had obviously painted something. The paintbrush had hardened, and I was really interested in the sound it was making as I broke the brush apart, and we recorded that. It was just a lot of shit that was like, dare I say, fun. It was just like about going to and having fun and like experimenting with sounds and a lot of weird shit. And that was like for me, just growing up as the son of a carpenter, it was nice to kind of be involved in that and then be able to like revisit those familiar smells of my childhood.
Did I mean that's kind of an incredible story. Did any power tools make their way onto the record, or is it just basically like mostly just like blunt objects?
I think we had a drill, and but I ended up using it to drill holes in these. I bought aluminum gutters and tied them together with a rope. So I thought, well, maybe we can use the drill for something, and then it really felt kind of like kind of tacky, I guess, or like make this industrial record with tool, and then like break out like fucking tools or some shit. I was just like, this is kind of silly. So I mean, really looking at it in hindsight, the whole fucking process was a bit silly and kind of ridiculous. So you know, I'm like got sandpaper on a piece of wood and I'm like rubbing it against the microphone, you know, trying to like that's stupid. Who makes music like that? So we didn't use any power tools. It seemed a little what one would say now, cringe, I suppose. Yeah. Not a term I use, but it would be. It seems silly.
I'm sorry to have been a bad influence on you. I actually am very sorry for having used that terminology in front of you and sort of like, you know, in a very like disease-like way. You know, I passed that on to you, and I apologize. I'm sorry for that.
I'm trying to be hip. You know, yeah. I'm an old guy.
No. Don't worry about being hip. Please, Jesus Christ, don't. You know, I want to ask you about sort of like the head state that you know, you're in when performing a lot of your pieces on it, at least like, you know, the lead singles to this new record, and to an extent, you know, in a lot of Daughter songs as well, especially on the last one. You know, I mean, I could be misreading this, but I guess there is like an element of, I think, rage or maybe even like depravity to, you know, a lot of like, you know, what you do performance wise. And I guess, you know, is there anything when going into a track that you're consciously trying to channel in order to kind of put yourself in that place where you're able to, I guess, like deliver that feeling, you know, on a song in such a potent way, in the potent way that you do?
I don't know. I think when I was young, that was something I thought I was doing. Like I was going to reach into these like dark parts of me and then like, expose them to people, and it would be very poetic and beautiful. And I don't feel that way at this point. I think that a lot of the shit that's in my life that I end up writing about is just really always there. And to perform is just to kind of engage in those feelings and to not necessarily experience them, but to just acknowledge them and to you know, I don't know if I necessarily like relive moments, but a lot of my life is just, you know, fear and anxiety and you know, guilt and so that's shit I wrestle with all the time. Performing is just an extension of myself and not necessarily a headspace I have to get into. With that said, I mean, there are times where I've gotten too far into it. I was talking with a friend today about a rather terrible experience I had in Glasgow, where I had a bit of a kind of a mental breakdown on stage, and I think I was having a rather just sort of a difficult time in my life, and I just had the moment where I was singing these songs and people were looking at me and they were singing them back, and I just thought, like, I'm singing the song about just a lot of self-hatred and like frustration and anger, and I don't fucking know you, and now you're like singing this at me. And I just sort of, it was really difficult for me. And I kind of disconnected from the whole thing and ended up sitting on the stage and I gave this bizarre performance. So I guess there's a danger in getting and tapping into things too much or something like that, I guess. I've had a couple other experiences like that. Not too often, but yeah, you know, and my performance, there's a lot of self-harm and shit, and it's not for show. I'm not doing it because it looks cool. You know, I'm doing it because it's, I don't know. It seems like a necessity while I'm performing, and it's in the performance that I have to like take this too far or something, or yeah, I don't know. Maybe the more I analyze it, the more confusing it is, even to myself. So.
Does any of that, put you at a point of reflection with your own work or with, daughter's work, in terms of like there being a kind of, in your own mind, a line of personal things that you may or may not want to approach or talk about in a song due to the fact that, you are sort of presenting that to an audience that's so far disconnected from, your own personal experience, or what exactly it is that's kind of inspiring what you're writing about?
Well, if I'm, I think I'd be like a lousy fiction writer or something, because I don't know how to be a different, I can only write from my own experience, which is probably just out of habit.
I mean, that's probably also most songwriters just in general,
yeah,
just writing from their own personal experiences.
Well, I mean, unless you're, like Tom Waits or something, then you can.
Sure.
Yeah, but I can't do that. I can't like create some fantasy land and then, the rabbit says this, and then the fucking elephant is like this, and then the mechanic shows up, and it's just like, I don't fucking know how to. So, yeah, it's like there's a lot of personal shit, but I try to use a lot more, like, to speak about it in a general way, so that it is like more relatable to people, that someone doesn't have to share the experience directly to understand it, and to personalize what I've written. Because if I'm singing about something like, very personal that someone doesn't really understand, and then they can sort of feel like, this isn't for me. This is like this guy's writing and singing, and it's sort of, it's about him. And I don't know what that is. And so certainly I try to not necessarily be like, I don't think inclusive is the right word, but to not be like so much about my own self, because I have a habit of being just fucking about me and my personal life, that when I'm writing, I do want to, like, I want people to connect. I certainly want it to like resonate with people in a I mean, to say it in a profound way would probably like be a lot about my ego, but to just kind of to I don't know, affect people in their lives, and that has some sort of value to them, and it doesn't need to be about me. Even though it is entirely about me.
I mean,
it's like the thin line to walk.
Oh, for sure. I mean, considering that, and considering what you were saying about the new record, and you not trying to sort of like drill down into a story necessarily on a lot of these songs, were there still, direct, clear personal experiences inspiring, your poetry on these tracks, even if we're not hearing it sort of like assembled in sort of a really clear, linear narrative way, or even, in your own head, were a lot of the things that you were saying and referencing sort of like free form, kind of coming together into, whatever these pieces kind of turned out to be?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that something that would probably be like the most of like a linear story would be Hounds in the Abyss, which which is, I mean, essentially it's about paranoia and like my own paranoia, and a lot of personal references and things I had thought about, but I completely forgot what we were just talking about right now. What the hell were we talking about?
Oh, I guess were there personal experiences that informed a lot of your writing on this record, even if we're not hearing them put together into clear stories, as you were talking about?
It's after 10. Usually I'm in bed right now.
Oh, I appreciate you staying up with us.
I appreciate that people are interested, so it goes both ways. Yeah, I mean, everything is there are parts of me everywhere. Everything is as I said, like, very personal. And I think, for example, there's oh shit, I can't even remember the names of all the fucking songs on the record.
Hey, but, I can get a reference up if you need me to get a reference up.
Yeah, could you? What's the third? Was it the third song? What is that?
Hold on a second. I was just looking at it a few minutes ago. Third track is "It Just Doesn't Feel Good Anymore."
Right. Okay. That's a good title. I'll have to make a habit of associating the titles with what the songs are for when I actually perform them. Uh, that was like very much like we were at Machines. We were at Machines as an apartment. The Machines in Magnus where we record as an apartment. So you just go there and you exist in the studio the whole fucking time. It's a really quite wonderful experience. So, and COVID was just it was like it was a thing suddenly, and I started having these thoughts of this like. It was like, don't go out, don't touch anything, don't look at anything. It was just, it was this like the possibility of this new world reeling, and it was somewhat inspired by Ice-T has like there's a song on Freedom of Speech, that album, where Jello Biafra is giving this whole spiel about it was sort of like the New World Order or some shit. and that started playing in my head, and then the police drove by and they were giving some sort of instructions. Now I'm like taking back to real life. The police drove by in Pawtucket, and we're giving some information over a loudspeaker and like in Spanish. I didn't know what was going on, and it was just like had this flash of like Jello Biafra spoken word in this Ice-T song, and I was just like, "Yo, fucking shit is getting weird," and I just like immediately started just jotting down this kind of like, don't go out, don't go anywhere, don't touch anything, don't look at anyone. So it was just like, I don't know. And that was sort of like just a point of confusion and future tripping or something, and like freaked out about the possibilities and like the complete uncertainty of it. So that was definitely like, there was a situation and I wrote about it in that moment. So yeah, I mean, it happens.
Just to remind everybody who's watching, we will be taking some fan questions in a minute. If you have any questions for Alexis on the new record, daughter stuff, anything, submit it. If you scroll down on the Twitch page, there's a Q&A tab. Throw it at us. The mods will go through it, and they'll get them my way in a few minutes. Bringing up performing that you were talking about, a minute or so ago, are you planning on like touring behind this record? And if you are, like, what shape are those performances going to take, in your own mind, especially considering like all the hardware that went into this record?
Yeah. There'd be no way to recreate all these sounds. So, I mean, if that means I'd go with playback or something, I don't know. But I've thought about, people in various cities like kind of coming out and maybe, someone playing drums here for this, and then, there's saxophone, or someone coming in for saxophone on some things and just different shit. And then I thought, maybe just having a stage set up. I've sort of built this thing in my head that how it should look, and really just, triggering things and having playback and performing in that way. This, for me, it's like I really want to keep it very intimate, because I've been, Daughters, there's 6 people in the band. We've got like 4 or 5 people in the crew. It's just like, it's a fucking nightmare touring like that. It's just like, it's just everybody on top of each other all the time. So I'm like looking forward to being in a van with like one person and just driving around and doing that shit. So I do want to keep it as like kind of minimal and bare bones and stripped down as I can, and have guests in places like that. But all through 2020, it's like everything I've been booked to play has been canceled. I was going to do sets at Oblivion. I was going to do Dark Mofo. I was supposed to play a couple sets at Roadburn. We had shows in New York, and everything just got canceled. And I don't have a lot of faith that things are really opening up. We have the daughter shows that we just announced, a couple in January, and for me it's easy. I sit back and I get an email. Someone's like, "You want to play shows?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I don't have to set anything up, so there's so little work involved for me there. I just say yes, and if it happens, it happens. But I just feel like there's a lot involved in going to do this on my own, and I don't buy into this like we're good to go. Everyone's going to start going out again and playing shows, and everything's going to be fucking groovy. I'm a little pessimistic about it. And when we're really in the pocket, I think I'll get out there. I'll be more than happy to play wherever. Like, I'm looking forward to it. It's just I'm not very hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty skeptical about it as well, personally. There are a lot of people hitting me up being like, hey, you're going to be at this show, are you going to be at that show? And as of right now, no. No, I'm not going to be at any show, especially considering like, and nothing against anybody, this is, nothing against anybody personally, but whenever I go to a show, there's usually a line of people that want to have a conversation or talk or whatever. It's like it's one thing to go to the show and have your mask on and just sort of like maybe be separate from everybody, or just kind of go there and do what you're doing and not be sort of like paid attention to by anybody else because you're just another person going to a show. But if I'm going to a show, there's like, a million people wanting to have a conversation, and I mean, that puts me and other people at risk, frankly, too. Yeah. So there's a lot of hesitancy there, and especially if you're a touring musician, there are parts of the country that are more vaccinated than others, frankly. And, you don't know what the hell you're going into with a state with a 30 or 40% rate as opposed to a 70% rate. And, they're not carding any of these people. There's no documentation being, taken account of in terms of like who's vaccinated, who's not. So it's a bit of a crapshoot. And, if you're somebody who's hesitant to jump in, even though things are opening up a little bit more, it's still understandable. It's not great, the situation that we're in still.
Yeah. I mean, and for my performances, they're not, I don't stand on the stage and like a fucking Oasis show, my hands behind my back, like singing. It's like I get in there and there's a lot of interacting with people, and
you're kissing people, you're punching people, you're spitting on people.
There's a lot of shit going on.
There's a lot of body fluids going back and forth.
Yeah, I get intimate with people, so I don't think during like the tail end of the pandemic is like the safest time to be like, yeah, just fuck it, I'll get in there and we'll hope for the best,
Yeah, no, it's true. To be hip about it again, it's still a panini. That's what the Zoomers say. It's still a panini. It's still a panini right now. So it's if you're hesitant to jump in, I understand. As we're kind of getting a few more questions in from the viewers, not to get too personal or blow up your spot or anything, because I'm sure we'll get some daughters questions in a second from a lot of the viewers. But would you be able to tell me a little bit? Do you right now currently have the inside scoop on the Lingua Ignota record? Like how's that shaping up? Like is that sounding amazing as well right now? I mean, as far as you know.
Yeah, it's just she's a genius. Like she's like operates on a different level than most other people.
I know that you took issue with my review of the last record a little bit. It wasn't positive enough. It wasn't as far as it could have gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just being a.
I know.
It's I mean, the record that she made is just like is just extraordinary. Like it's like a truly extraordinary piece of art, and I think she's a genius. I'm stoked for people to hear it. I think it's gonna like fuck some people up because it's real good. It's wild. There's just so much like really incredible shit, and she's just like. So like extraordinarily talented, and the shit she does with her voice, and just like it's really amazing. It's wild record.
What you were saying about touring a minute ago had reminded me of just what you were saying about sort of like the process of the whole thing and how grueling aspects of it are. I really commend the fact that you guys went out on that tour that you had originally planned and then immediately came back around and sort of like booked a second tour like on top of it, and then almost like reran the same play that you did but like double timed it in after You Won't Get What You Want came out.
Yeah, well, we thought we were just going to go on a couple of weeks, like a 2-week tour, and that would be, that'd be it for a while, and then that changed very, very abruptly. We were doing like pretty standard rooms for us, and and everything had sold out. And I think that we were kind of thinking that we were getting a lot out of the nostalgia factor, that, people either thought they would never see us again or never got to see us, and that now they were gonna get a chance to see Daughters, and maybe wouldn't come back the next time we were around. And then admittedly, your review for our record, like, I started getting messages like about it, and I was like, I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. Like, what's going on? And then because I'm not fucking hip, I don't pay attention to anything. So suddenly, like, we finished that tour, and then it was like, we're gonna go back out, and the rooms got like three times the size, and that's why Sam had to stop playing with us. Sam had been playing bass with us for a very long time. He replaced Pat when Pat was the original Daughters bass player. Pat, who sang for a band called Force Fed Glass and another band called Bastion, which were like really great kind of screamo, like late 90s, mid 90s screamo, real shit. But they were real good. And Pat played bass. And then when Pat left to move to California, Sam came in and had been with the band, from that time, like almost, close to its inception. But it was just like, he was married, he had a career, he had a real job, he was having a baby, and he wanted to just, like, he was like, yo, I can't go out, like, you guys want to just.
I feel bad. I feel like I fucked that up. I feel like I fucked that dynamic up, because there's like more dates now. I feel like I fucked that up inadvertently.
No, I mean, it's the shit that we wanted to do, that, but we were like, well, fucking, maybe no one's gonna give a shit, and we're old now, and this probably be like a short-lived thing. We'll go on we'll play a couple festivals, and it's not gonna be a big deal. And then once we were confronted when our management said, like, yo, there's some like serious shit we can do with this, and everybody was on board, but Sam just was like, yo, this is just not the thing I'm gonna do anymore. And we got Chris Slarash, who was in Mets. He jumped right in there and started playing with us, and we're just, it's a fucking job now, and that's like all I've ever wanted to do since I was like a kid. It was just like, well, I wanted to be a hockey player, and then I got really into drugs, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to play music because I want to get high. I can't play hockey and get high. So this worked much better. But this is just the shit I've always wanted to do, and to have it like finally after 20 years that it's like, oh, I can, like, I live this is how I live now. This is fucking brilliant. So it's hard, and the fucking hours are long when you're working, and it can be difficult, and there's a lot of shit you got to deal with, like, but it's worth it. I'm happy to do it.
I want to take in a few viewer questions over here. Gigan Man 22 wants to ask.
Oh, Gigan Man. All right.
Gigan Man. And the question over here is classic Gigan Man. Totally. He's asking about some of the feelings on You Won't Get What You Want. He says, when listening to that record, I feel a great deal of anxiety, and I love that you've made music that can transfer that feeling. Do you hope the upcoming album also invigorates listeners with that feeling of anxiety as well?
Well, I don't know. I mean, people will get what they get from it. I'm not here to. I didn't make a record to like incite an emotion or a feeling or like joyousness or violence or something. It's just, these are sort of the feelings that are very prevalent in my life, and I address them artistically, sort of for myself. But if people hear this shit and think like, well, this is like what an inspiring album, then that's cool. If that's how it impacts them, I think that's great. It can impact them in a negative way, and that's just their interpretation. But I'm not going to go out there and start policing people on, like, this means this, and you got to feel this way about it, and if you don't feel this way about it, you're not listening correctly, or some shit like that. I mean, that's just like, fuck all that. You get what you get from it, and if you don't get anything from it, that's cool. Like, there's plenty of other shit to listen to.
Okay. To go off of some of what you were saying earlier, considering that this is, job-wise, what you and others in the group had, been wanting to do, but when the band was coming back, there was sort of this anticipation that we do a tour, we try it again, you know, maybe we do these dates, maybe we do these kinds of venues and so on and so forth. You know, even though at the time there was like no predicting the future of like, you know, the fervor for the band's, you know, return and the acceptance that, you know, you've been getting with newer listeners. You know, what initially drove that comeback though? Because, you know, I can't imagine that, like, since you guys had sort of called it quits, that, you know, conditions and interest in the band had changed all that rapidly. Like, you know, what was initially like, you know, the idea or feeling that kind of planted that seed that a comeback was necessary?
I was playing a bit in a band called it was just like a kind of power violence hardcore band, and I would occasionally, I'd be out somewhere and someone would ask about Daughters and be like some 20-year-old kid who never saw us or something like that, and it was happening. It was happening quite a bit, and I think with that, it just seemed like maybe there's maybe we should play a couple shows or something like that. I think, like, why not? Or, you know, I might be ahead of it. I think what happened was, you know, Nick and I didn't speak for a few years. We have a strange relationship, and we didn't speak after the breakup for a few years. And then Andy Lowe, who runs Robotic Empire, who put out Canada Songs, and he sort of orchestrated this kind of tale of deceit in an effort to get me to speak to Nick and Nick to speak to me by saying like, oh, Lex wants to talk to you, and then he tells like me that like Nick is interested in, you know, speaking to you. He wants to like work things out, and neither of us had felt that way. It was sort of, but as soon as Nick and I sat down, it was like we were immediately like, well, maybe we should play. Like, maybe we should do some shows or something, and that's I think what got us going with the kind of two reunion shows. We did 2 nights in Rhode Island, and then we were like, yeah, we'll do some shows, maybe we'll do some stuff, like we'll fucking see what happens. And then we got an offer to go to Australia, and that fell through due to the promoter stealing money from all kinds of people. There was like a big thing about it. There was like an article about it on some shit, and he had ripped off like all these people and was promoting shows that weren't happening. And I believe he promoted our shows, and we had not confirmed them. And then he disappeared and you know, got off into the fucking outback or something. But but we sat back for a couple of years, and then while I was touring, people were asking a lot of questions and about when we were going to play and what we were doing and what was going to happen. And so I never got to see you, and we really wanted to see you. And I think I just sent a group text one night. I was like, look, man, people fucking want to see us play. Like, let's do some shows. Like, and then we did those few nights. The 2 nights in New York, we did a Philly night, and then we did 2 in Boston, and it went really well. And we started writing. I think we wrote Long Road No Turns like around that, and we had kind of premiered that song, sort of like kind of showing people that like, look, we're not here just like to cash in. We're like actually going to write some songs. So we brought that with us, and you know, from there we just very slowly were building it up and hoping for the best. I mean, it took us a while, you know, everybody living in a different part of the country, but you know, it just happened like kind of really gradually. Like it was sudden the way it started, but then it was very a slow moving thing to kind of get to the point where we release You Won't Get What You Want.
From your own personal estimation, was getting back into that creative you know, process, especially with there being the distance there with everyone else in the group, something that was easy or difficult? Because it just kind of sounds like and feels like you guys didn't really like miss a beat creatively and sonically. You know what I mean? It's almost as if like, you know, You Won't Get What You Want is a record that you would have come out with like 2 or 3 years after, you know, the self-titled. You know,
we've never come out with a record 2 or 3 years after.
Well, I know what you're saying. I get it. I understand. Yeah. But it seems like, you know, what the gap in time, the way those 2 records sound, you know, it feels like the gap in time that actually was there wasn't there, because of, it seems like you guys are almost like jumping right off of the intensity and, the sound palette of that record, but building on it in so many ways. So, when getting back into that space, was it important to think back to where you guys left off, and or were you guys coming at it from a different place when deciding like, what exactly to do for the last record?
Well, it's hard to like. I think that whatever is the most previous thing any band has done, it's like sort of the most recent reference point to have. So I think it's difficult to. When I look back, I think if you say like, look at Canada's songs and look at You Won't Get What You Want, it's like, how is this the same band? It's like, if you just go backwards in the catalog, you can see how things are intertwined and
sure
natural progression, like the things that the progression suddenly seems very natural. So, we didn't really know what else we were. And also we were playing a lot of the self-titled stuff when we got back out to play, because we had never performed any of it. We kind of went on this hiatus or breakup or whatever, right before the record came out, much to the disappointment of Hydra Head. But, we were kind of in that headspace and performing those songs so we could be self-referential and like look at that material and then go forward from there. It wasn't kind of like, who the fuck are we and what are we going to do? I mean, at that point we had been together for 17 years or whatever it is. So but I think that there's always like an interest to sort of to do the next thing, and it's like we could of course like always make the same record. I remember there was a criticism about, we put out Hell songs and we knew we could have, there was some acclaim on Canada songs, and we knew like, well, we can just write another fast, stupid record with dumb song titles. And like, we could very easily put that together, but that didn't seem like this is who we want to be artistically. And, it's important to kind of push this forward and to be better or whatever. And people are spending time with their ideas and their instruments and becoming better and more efficient. And, everyone has to evolve. If you don't, you just sort of like it's like 2020 and you're wearing fucking acid wash jeans and you get a perm, you're trying to play like fucking, Manowar songs or some shit, and you're just like, am I even like, what am I doing? Like, what the fuck is this? So there's a need to for us anyway. I mean, that works for Manowar. I don't know shit, people. I mean, I like Manowar. I don't want to badmouth Manowar. I'm a fan. So it's for us, it's just like we are, we're a group of people. Like we're a collective, and the name is a banner, and we operate under that, and it needs to work for everybody. So I think that if years ago I say like, well, if we can make a fucking jazz record, like that's just what we do. Like it's up to us to be what we want to be, and like that's true. But at the same time, it's sort of like that's not what the fuck this is. We couldn't just like write some obscure nonsensical record that just like completely doesn't fit and then do like a bunch of fucking Weezer covers or some shit. I don't know, it would just be like, it wouldn't make any sense. So there is like a heart of this band, and it's always present, but it's sort of, it's always evolving, and I don't know, I don't even fucking know if I answered that question.
I think you answered it well enough.
I think I rambled for a while. It was like shit.
Kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about writing from your own perspective versus writing from other perspectives. I have quite a few questions about this, so I think it would be kind of apt to throw at least this one in here from Malachite Man, who also a great guy, obviously.
Read all of his tweets.
All of them. I don't miss one. Never miss it. Who's asking about the creation of Paul, you know, and as sort of like this figure on, you know, the self-titled and how that extends to the last record as well. And, you know, and what exactly, you know, as a figure, you know, he sort of represents, you know, in your mind as a writer.
He's probably like some part of me that's kind of the whipping boy where he just can't seem to get anything right. Paul is I was sitting and I was writing in a bar, and there was a guy I knew named Paul, and he was paying his tab. He was getting ready to leave, and I was just like, this motherfucker right here. And he became sort of like very loosely the identity of Paul, just by chance. So, you know, it's hard to not think about him whenever I talk about him or begin to like kind of incorporate this character into a song. But again, like everything is personal, and there's always some part of me that is Paul. You know, he's just and you know, for me, I thought it would be fun to like reprise his character, like to bring him back and do that on You Won't Get What You Want. And so for me, it was also like a kind of an exercise in writing to see like, how do I tell this story? And then for me personally, I'm now thinking where these two songs overlap, like is the Virgin, is the first appearance of Paul the Virgin, or like a precursor to Ocean Song, or is it the other way around? And I'm sort of trying to figure out how to create this character's mythology or something, or story. So,
all right, to ask quickly about or dive a little bit deeper into the Paul thing. I don't know if this is like opening up another can of worms here or anything, but like, you know, your use of that name and that kind of character and the way that you use him, like serendipitously, it's almost biblical in a way. I mean, you know, because the name does almost like have that kind of connotation to it, and almost like maybe in a way the trials and tribulations that he goes through in your writing. Yeah. I mean, you know, there is something that I think has that kind of a character to it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, unintentional. I mean, like I said, it could have been somebody else in that moment standing there paying their tab, and it would have been a different name. But I have thought the same thing, that it's very convenient the way that, and it's like a single syllable name. It's a pretty dull name. There's you know, I'm sorry to anybody named Paul that likes. I have no issues with you.
You know, the more familiar the name, I guess, the easier it is to project on it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I mean, I could have used John or something, but then people would think I'm talking about our drummer. It would be very confusing. So yeah,
that just create too much drama, probably.
Like, so with the situation, tell us more about what happened to John. I mean, like, it's not fucking John, is it? It would be a whole headache. So I'm glad we can. And with that, we can never have someone named Paul join the band. It would be just silly, and
it would create a paradox.
It would
band paradox.
Yeah, we would fucking spontaneously combust or something. Spinal Tap drummer.
I wanted to ask quickly before we let you go about some of the visuals you're kind of teasing.
Were there so few?
So few what?
Watch your question.
I mean, I could dig into a little bit deeper.
I want you to do it.
Okay, let's see. There's one here, but we kind of addressed this question earlier about your writing approach, but we talked about that. Friendo Pepper, do you have a personal favorite track that you've worked on?
Oh, that's not a good question.
Okay, well, you asked.
I'll answer. You know what?
Go ahead and answer. But frankly, you know, sometimes the questions are like, you know, very simple. You know, who's your favorite band? What's your favorite song that you worked on? And not to shit on anybody who asks those types of questions, but like, you know, sometimes that's how that's what the questions are. Yeah, people are curious.
Who cares? I got no, you know, I got nothing else to do. I'd be in bed right now anyway. So fuck it. I'm happy to do this and have a conversation. I'm really happy with what we did with Guest House and how that turned out. And I love performing it and playing it. And it came together for me like very last minute. I wrote it like there's a secondary studio and studio be. And I sat there and like wrote the whole fucking thing very quickly. And it just like, I did it in one take and just like, it was fucking perfect. And I'm so happy with it. It's a nice moment.
Okay, we have one from Caspa, who I actually am very familiar with, who's always here, no matter what stream we do. He shows up at every stream.
Has nothing to do with me. He's here.
He's always here, but he's obviously a big fan of what you guys do because his question is quite detailed. He wants to ask that there is a track that does it for him, the Flammable Man and Ocean song, where the thunderous drum rolls make him feel like he's literally being dragged and then pulled underground forcefully. Do you ever get that feeling going back and listening to it? Long question, I know.
I don't go back and listen to our stuff at all.
But I guess to extend into it, I mean, when writing or creating with daughters, or even your own solo stuff, when you're thinking about the instrumentals or some of the kind of sound palettes that you're creating, I mean, are you consciously envisioning or sort of imagining or trying to recreate these very like visceral experiences, with your sound, so that when people consuming your records are doing what they do, they're kind of having a physical experience with it as well as an emotional one?
I think that like that's probably a question more suited to like Nick and John, but I mean, yeah, I'd assume so, because I've talked about when I'm writing, it's like I do want it to like register with people in a personal way and kind of and affect them. So I mean, there certainly are moments where we'll come together and record something. We'll be sitting in the studio and you kind of listen to the playback and you just think like, oh shit, like we did something really good right here. And like, this is gonna, like, you can almost imagine performing it and seeing it. And like, where you think about people hearing it for the first time and you pat yourself on the back and it's all about your fucking ego. So, yeah, there's certainly some shit where you put something together and you think like, oh, like we did this. Like this is something, like this is better than like this other thing we did. Or like this, we've achieved something in this moment that's like, like you can't ignore it.
I mean, to that point though, and to almost like, call back to the question a little bit, on the physical side, linking that also to just the way that you perform as well, which we were talking about earlier. I mean, I guess it does sort of make me think of daughters with this question in mind, in the context of, I mean, I guess this is the case for all, if not most music to a degree, but there really is kind of like, I think, a line in the sand that daughters and a lot of bands cross in whatever way that they do, where, it becomes something that seems like it's just beyond sound, and it becomes like physical almost in abusive way, you know what I mean? In like a super, explosive way. And I guess like, I'm not even sure what the hell I'm asking here, but I guess is like, as somebody who's made music that crosses that barrier, I guess like, with my camera going out, as somebody who's made music that crosses that barrier in such like an overt and successful way, I guess, what exactly I think, what exactly goes into that soup in your own mind to, I guess, kind of create that experience and create that experience in your own unique way, I suppose.
Was it take to make it, or how do we feel about making that?
Either or, really.
I don't know what it takes to do it. I think that it's more so of kind of like everything coming together, and I don't want to say like some sort of perfect way, where I think like things just sort of line up and everyone is doing what they should do or what they need to do and you kind of find yourself, you know what, I think it's just like kind of being honest with emotions in the music. Oh my God, it sounds so fucking lame to say, but I think it's like there's like a sincerity, and I think it lends itself really to like what I do, and then what John and Nick do, like that. When we put everything together, it's like if someone else was writing the words of the songs and to these songs, I think like they would be somewhere else thinking something else and having some sort of different experience, and like can kind of, it would obviously alter what it is we're doing. And like, it only works because we do this together, that this is like something that we're doing like collectively. So I don't know what it takes to do that. I think it's what happens when we play and when we're writing together. I don't think there's a formula or some shit or anything like that. That's like a really strange thing to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from the way that you're putting it, it sounds like it's more of a chemistry than it is something that's a plan.
Yeah, sure. Chemistry.
The chemistry between everybody playing together real nice and everything.
It's like, well, I mean, but it's like Fleetwood Mac, where you wonder if Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks like really got along really well and their relationship was like really wonderful. Like they wouldn't have written like oh shit, which she wrote, what did she write about Lindsey? Thunder Only Happens. What is that song, man? Come on, you fucking.
Oh, I forget, but honestly, like
considering.
But
she wrote it about Lindsey, and then Lindsey at the beginning of the album, he wrote fucking Go Your Own Way about Stevie. It was like,
yeah,
if shit was great, they wouldn't have written those songs, and we wouldn't have those songs, and we wouldn't be able to fucking listen to
yeah, I mean, I'm blanking on song titles, but there's a lot of material on that self-titled, especially that Landslide, for example. That's not exactly pointing toward a good place. And yeah. As you're saying, we wouldn't have gotten that material. I mean, point taken. So I mean, are you essentially saying that like the heart of the band is basically like the hatred that you and Nick have for each other? Is that what you're saying? Like keeps it going?
I don't say hatred. I think that there's just there's a tension that's always there, and it's like it is to our benefit, and everybody works together and we communicate and all that shit, but there's like undeniably there's like a Nick and I are kind of, but I think he and I talked about once earlier, the opposite sides of the same coin, sort of like we're the same, but we're not. We're very very different. So
no, and I think a lot of this, what you're saying, circles back around to the fact that you're consistently referencing the band as a collective, and obviously it's a result of, and not all bands work that way, but you're talking about the group as a result of equal energy from everyone, and I think the point that you're making on that front is clear, and I appreciate you not going too deep into the drama of that, because when we have Nick on at some point in August, I'm sure he'll be really messy with it. And as a result of that, I don't want to have any ownership of anything bad that happens after that point. But like, I would like for I would like to continue getting what I want. I would like for good things to continue past that point. We'll try to keep it friendly and sane on the the next conversation that we have related to the collective, as it were. But hey, look, we appreciate you coming through. It's been amazing. It's been fantastic. You need some sleep. I'll get it eventually. I'll get my 4 hours. Okay. Yeah. No, four honestly, like 8 hours over fucking rated in my opinion. 8 hours is for the weak. Yeah. It's children sleep 8 hours. It's a grown man. It's really about the 4. It's awful. I feel terrible all the time. Honestly, when I've had 3 hours of sleep, my brain feels like a Daughters song. Yeah, it feels like just a Daughters song is playing in my head 24 hours for the next 24 hours. Yeah, that's what we go for. How many hours of sleep should this record feel like whenever we sit down to write a record? Yeah. All right, Alexis Marshall, thank you very much for coming through and being an open book and a great guest. And I love that you're drinking out of a jar. That's typically my vibe as well, but I don't have a jar at the moment. But I live in rural Pennsylvania, man. It comes with the territory. jars, haunted houses. You see a lot of ghosts out there?
I'm waiting to see some. I live in this house. This farmhouse was built in 1890. I'm like waiting to see something, but I haven't seen any.
At 1890? Just turning into the 1900s. I don't think that's not really ghost material.
No, that's not ghost. Come on.
I think it's got to be like. I think it's got to be to see some good ghosts. See some good ghosts. I think it's got to be 1700s to be for some good ghosts.
Condos in San Diego on ghost adventures. All right,
haunted by yuppies, haunted condos in San Diego.
Yeah, they're searching. They're still there for their lost loafer. They're trying to fucking.
Okay, all right. I've never heard of a haunted San Diego condo, but I have not been out there, so I any of the haunted condos there. So I'll take.
You got to get Discovery Plus, and you can watch the whole fucking back catalog of ghost adventures and fill your days. You should have been filling your 2020 pandemic with it. That's what we did.
Again, I feel like it's a West Coast thing. On the East Coast, all the ghosts are more attracted to the 1700s houses, most likely. I think that's probably more the vibe over here. Why would a ghost live in an 1800s house when they could go move over to a 1700s house?
People die all the time,
That's true.
Right?
That's true. But I feel like if there
just keep dying.
If there's really a ghost world, there's probably a ghost hierarchy in terms of who's been dead the longest. You know, and you probably want to be around those ghosts the more. They probably have like the best ghost orgies and shit.
Ghost orgies. That's like a fucking Clive Barker novel or something.
Yeah.
It really is actually Clive Barker. Cold Heart Canyon. Great novel. Loved it. It's got ghost orgies.
Hey, and there's my camera. Tell me to go.
Yeah, I did a disembodied voice of it.
All right. Thank you very much again for coming through, and have a good one.
Yeah, you take care.
All right. Bye.